So I've been playing around with ChatGPT, and I wanted to create instructions on basically to help me read through the Bible, right? So like if
Okay.
you've ever tried to read through the Bible, there's sections that are hard. Like there's
Right.
sections like if you've ever read Lord of the Rings, there's a portion in the Fellowship of the Ring where Tolkien, all he talks about is a single tree for like 60 pages. And you're just like, why? Like
Are
what?
you serious? Like,
No, that's
really?
true. Yeah. It's like it's pretty early on, like 1/3 of the way through. And he talks about a tree that they fall into and they drink. In the movies, they have Merry and Pippin drinking the water and it makes them grow.
Yeah.
It's that tree. But he goes on for like ever. I'm exaggerating with 60 pages, but it's like
Interesting.
so much. And you're like, dude, this is hard to get through, right?
Huh.
And I feel like that with the Bible a lot of the time. And so for me, it's like one of my personal goals is to start to reading the Bible more. And so I was like, how can I use ChatGPT to help break down some of the passages I read? So I started creating instructions that would give ChatGPT a guideline for me to go off of. Now, before I start with that, you have to be careful with AI because it can lie to you. Plus, it
Right.
can have different perspectives that you don't want, which we found out, right? Like with Gemini, when Gemini first came out, if you asked it for like a picture of a Nazi soldier, they had like African American and Asian women Nazi soldiers because
wow.
they were there's some sort of thing behind it by the creators.
Was this a personal test you did?
No, it was all over
I'm
the
just
internet,
kidding.
and it's a it's made by humans, and it's giving guidelines by humans. So those humans have a perspective, right? And so AI is going to have some sort of underlining perspective that comes from the creators, and it's like you don't know what that perspective is if it agrees with what. So you kind of need to give it some like a lot of parameters, right?
Hmm.
And then kind of need to double check and kind of need to know all the stuff.
And
But
still even just take it with a grain of salt.
yes, right, exactly. So
Recognizing that it's pulling from information that is out there and you know,
right,
it
and
may
it's
not be
right, and so but it's pretty interesting to like get because like the big thing for me is when you read something like the Bible, a lot that you're missing is context of how it applies
Right.
today, but also like who they're talking to and why they say certain things. Like, why does sacrifice, like eating food that was forced, like put aside for idols, like why can you eat? Like, it's like why does this matter to me? And
Right.
so it's like it's interesting to try to get perspectives of why it applies today and things like that. And obviously, I'm not smart enough myself to like go through that. So it's like, you know what? If AI can help me in some sort of way, that'd be great. The other benefit was when I put these instructions together. My dad's been pastor for 30 plus years. So I kind of talked to him about the idea and we kind of came up with some things and he helped me with it, which was cool. So
Nice.
here's some instructions. Here's the instructions I gave it. Right?
Okay.
So the goal, as I read through the New Testament, provide thoughtful chapter by chapter commentary written as if you were a panel of high level New Testament scholars. Now,
Okay.
that being said, I did before I went through and wrote the instructions. I kind of gave ChatGPT like, hey, I want instructions for you for ChatGPT for a GPT itself, and I want to make sure it's as accurate as possible. So help me create the instructions. So I kind of built out the outline, and then ChatGPT actually broke down the instructions for me, and I took those instructions and put them in here.
Okay. So
Does that
this
make
is
sense?
a custom GPT that
Yeah,
you're building.
right.
Okay.
So the scholar voices. Now these voices I got from my dad. He's like, here's 6 like high level that have studied in depth different books, and they'll help you kind of get different perspectives on the Bible because they all kind of they're all in there, whether it's Protestant or Catholic or Pentecostal or whatever they have, or Baptist. They all kind of branch off differently and have different perspectives. So it's interesting to see different perspectives on certain topics.
No.
But so it's like, here's some scholar voices like C.K. Barrett, deep historical critical insight, strong in Greek exegesis and theological analysis. N.T. Wright, John Stott, Thomas Schreiner, Gordon Fee, and Joseph Fitzmyer. So the tone and style. Blend these scholars naturally, write with clarity, reverence, and depth. Keep the theological framework consistent with moderate to conservative, scholarly Christian thought, historically grounded, biblically faithful, and intellectually rigorous. Which I thought was pretty cool. It came up with that themselves, right? Like after the outline. So it's pretty cool.
Well worded.
Yeah. So content structure. Now I came up with this content structure and then it helped me break it down. So I wanted I'll read through it. For every chapter, I request commentary on the summary of the chapter. So 3 to 5 sentences explaining what happened in the chapter. Key themes and theological insights. So 3 to 5 major points drawing from the theological, historical, and literary perspectives. Emphasize important doctrines, historical backgrounds, connections to Old Testament, and how the chapter fits into the larger New Testament story. Important verses and commentary. Select 2 to 4 key phrases verses. Offer rich but concise commentary on why these verses matter, referencing how these scholars would have handled the text. And then scholar-specific notes. Now, this is really cool. So it'll take each of the 6 and be like, what would that person take out of this chapter? And it breaks down. And then after it breaks those down, it will also basically, if 2 disagree with each other, it'll explain, here's a disagreement between these 2 guys. This is his perspective. This is his perspective, which is cool because obviously people don't agree on everything in the Bible. So it's like,
right.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Application, reflection, optional but encouraged. Offer a pastoral insight for today's reader. So how does it apply to today? Pretty cool. And then add a section. I added this afterwards. So I wanted to do it with my son. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm reading it and he's reading the same chapter, it's like, let's break this all down into just a small paragraph that I can talk to my son about that's a little more kid friendly or like makes more sense to like a fifth. He's not in 5th grade. He's actually he's going to be in 4th grade, but he has a high reading level. So I was like, all right, so we'll do 5th grade level so I can talk to him about it. Right. So pretty cool. Additional notes. I assume I'm reading chapter by chapter and want the commentary to stay at my pace. If historical, cultural, or linguistic background is important, briefly explain it. So that's when I was talking about, like, if they emphasize something that doesn't really matter today, but it mattered then, please explain that, because that's where a lot of people miss things. So it's like, explain the historical context, why they're talking to a certain people, like if they if they mention something that we don't do anymore that goes over our head, like explain that kind of stuff. Where scholars would have different emphasis or minor disagreements, you may briefly mention that. Example, and then it kind of gives me example. So what's cool about this is when this is saved, the instructions, all I have to do on here is go, like if I'm doing, I don't know, Corinthians, if I can spell it right, Corinthians chapter, if I can type, chapter 1. Oh, Corinthians 1, chapter 1. And all I have to do is just type that. Because I've given it specific instructions already, I don't have to say, okay, give me a breakdown. You don't have to type any of that. You just have to do that, and it should just start breaking it down for me. So here's the breakdown. Look at, so as it's giving me the summary, 3 to 5 sentences of the chapter itself.
Mm-hmm.
Paul begins his letter to the Corinthians by affirming his apostolic. Calling,
I gotcha.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Calling and greeting the church in Corinth as sanctified in Christ. So it's kind of cool. And then it breaks it down more than that. But then it's key themes and theological insights, the unity of church in Christ, cross versus human wisdom. Now, I know that this is a business podcast and we're talking about like the Bible and church and stuff, but I think it's really cool. The whole point of this was to break it down so you could use ChatGPT instructions to quickly go through things. And so you can make a repeated process that's very, very detailed. As long as you give it instructions beforehand, it can be really quick. Mm-hmm. So like the next time I do this, I can just say, okay, now do, like if you were like doing research for a specific topic that you do all the time, instead of having to write out each time, you can just create the instructions and it will start to do it. And it's so repeated. Mm-hmm. Like it's such a repeatable process and it's so quick. And so I use that for this, which will help me here. But you could do this for other books too. Break down chapters of like a specific book that you read. Like for
Right.
me, I've always struggled with reading and then not just comprehending what I'm reading, but like applying it, but also like going through each sentence. Like for me, when I was a kid, I would read for a whole chapter and be like, wait, like I don't remember anything what I just read. Like it just like went over, like not that I don't, it's just like I read and don't remember even what I read at all.
Right.
Right. And I think that's pretty common. Like my middle daughter struggles with that. She'll read. She's like, yeah, I'm done reading 20 minutes. I'm like, cool. What was it about? And she's like, I have no idea. Like, I don't even remember what the topic was. And so I'm like that. So it's nice being able to read something and then go back and pull the key insights out. And you could do that with self-help books, business books, whatever you want. And you don't even have to create this twice. You could just do a book study, create instructions that are similar to this on ChatGPT. And from there, you can just type in the book, type in what chapter you're on, and it can have the same process of how and you can even apply it directly to your business, right? Like, okay, I run this marketing agency. I run this shoe company. I run this brick and mortar store. I'm reading this book to be more productive in a certain way. At the end of each chapter, break down what the chapter means and how I can apply it to my business.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? So you can because a lot of the times I've read a lot of business books. We've talked about a Chris Voss book we both read, and it's like, those are really cool. But sometimes you get done, you're like, that's so smart, and you don't know how to apply it.
Yeah.
So having something like this will help you kind of take the stuff you're reading and you're learning and applying it to your business to be a more effective business person.
We talk about books and everything and doing this for books. I'm thinking about it from like a marketing team perspective.
Yeah.
So you can define roles in your business and you can say, here's the role that I want you to take in this position. And here's all the things that you need to take into consideration. And, you basically flesh out an entire marketing team and they're each person's objective. And then you give it a problem to solve. And then it takes each one of those personas that you've defined in the instructions and it solves the problem collaboratively between these different marketing personas.
That's really good. Yeah.
Right. And so it's fantastic from like a resource perspective when you have a book or an article and you want to be able to digest that content and apply it to your life or your business, but also to be able to present problems and have it use those resources along with any other instructions and resources you give it to be able to collaboratively solve that problem.
Yeah, that's really good. And doing it in a folder on ChatGPT, you can give the instructions to the folder, and then each conversation can be actually defined by the team member you want to talk to, and then you can have a collaborative conversation as well, right? Okay. So if you're like, I want the digital designer, so it's all image generation and stuff like that, you can have that as its own conversation, so it keeps it all in one place. You can have the sales guy, that like for ideas for your sales, you can have that as a conversation, and then you can have a collaboration or team. Yeah, you could marketing team conversation, and in there, everybody can collaborate, and those instructions are already put in too. So it's like you can keep everything funneled in the right position, but then you can also bring them all together. And with it being in a folder, it shares all that information. So as you start talking about one thing and you jump from one to one, it's not like you have to reteach the GPT. It already knows.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thanks for listening. Every week we go over news, tips, tricks, and best practices to help you grow your small business. So follow and subscribe below.
For more information, check out our website at launchingpros.com, where you get access to a bunch of free resources and courses designed to launch and grow your business online. Check out the links below.